Christian Fraser with his look at how the maths might all shape up. Let's focus now on the fallout from last night's BBC debate with Caroline and Siraj here, and Vicky back at Westminster. Vicky, pick this up. First, what do you reflect on 24 hours later?
Well, it was interesting because beforehand there was a lot of talk about whether this was just a huge gamble for Ed Miliband, putting himself up there. No David Cameron, no Nick Clegg, of course, and whether he would just end up being picked on by the others, which on the issue of austerity and reducing the deficit, he was to some extent, but he did hold his own, and Labour people I spoke to afterwards were pretty pleased. They felt that he looked and sounded prime ministerial, that he was pretty relaxed in front of the cameras. But of course there were awkward moments, particularly at the end there, where Nicola Sturgeon was really, going for him, saying, "Are you going to work with me?" And this really was the picture of the night, I think, captured there by one photographer, which, shows Nicola Sturgeon going to shake hands with Ed Miliband there at the end, and then Nigel Farage over on his own to one side, of course, the only voice from the right. And Nigel Farage, I think, by his standards, having quite a quiet night, and, all the headlines really taken by this whole discussion about what Labour will do, possibly if they get to the stage where they are possibly the biggest party, or whether they want to work with the SNP or not. It was pretty gripping stuff, I think. Even though the Prime Minister wasn't there, I think many people felt that it really played out for you on that stage what might be the discussions behind the scenes in 3 weeks' time.
Siraj, how did you see it?
Well, I think one of the, we went into the debates. Nicola Sturgeon had tweeted before the debate. She'd taken pictures with Leanne Wood, taken a selfie, and there was this sense of we're going to have.
So we knew who was going to get on, basically.
Exactly, and we knew going into the debates that there was an alliance. The Green Party, the SNP, and Plaid Cymru were going to go in, and there was a sense that Ed Miliband would be by himself, would get attacked on austerity, and Nigel Farage would kind of be on his own. The only man standing from the right, and he would kind of he'd have his own platform to deal his issues. But Ed Miliband was really the key, was at the centre of it. Is how was he going to deal with the pressure of the other leaders?
Caroline, what was your take on it?
Well, my feeling was that, although, as Vicky said, it was a gamble for Ed Miliband, it was one that paid off for him and not for David Cameron, because you had there was 5 people on the stage, all of whom were able to make the assumption, assume the status quo, that David Cameron would not be Prime Minister after the election. It was sort of the baseline assumption. Everything they said was building on that, what happens afterwards, and he wasn't there to put the counter case.
And the fact that he wasn't there, and indeed Nick Clegg wasn't there either, for reasons that I think we've gone into at some length, I mean, did that leave you slightly dissatisfied, frustrated? Did the whole thing not quite reach the climax it could have done had they been there? I
think that, if you looked at what was happening online, there were a lot fewer people actually talking about the debates online. I think that reflected a sense of actually what was going on in the debates. It did feel a bit like there were challenges. These aren't all people who are going to necessarily influence what happens on May the 7th. And then, if you looked at Twitter, you had Nick Clegg coming in saying, "I'll debate you." I mean, there was a consistent stream of tweets from the Lib Dems saying, if we were invited, we would have turned up. And there was this different kind of dynamic playing online and on TV.
We're going to show you a little image here for a moment, which is the suggestion of what might have been happening involving the 2 men who weren't there. This is a sort of Gogglebox mock-up of David Cameron and Nick Clegg. Not the real thing, I think it's worth stressing. There they are on the couch, mug of a drink of some description to the right of the Prime Minister, who's become heavily tattooed overnight, it would seem, as well. But I don't think that was a real shot, but it was quite a nice idea.